This video is on estimation for Year 8 classes. What I'd like you to do is read the Knowledge Organiser, watch this video and use it to work through the examples, try the questions from the Knowledge Organiser and complete any Maths Watchwork set. So if we have a look at your Knowledge Organiser, estimation can also be referred to as approximation. So it says an approximation to a calculation can be obtained by rounding all the numbers in the calculation to one significant figure. What we mean by one significant figure is we go to the first non-zero number and then we round after that. I'm going to show you that in these calculations here if you're not too sure on that. It says even though the answer isn't exact, it can still be useful. Often we use this when the answers are really big or really small and they're quite complicated calculations, and we can quickly work out what we think the answer roughly should be. When we're modifying this, you could work out the exact answer of some of these, but we've just got to follow the process to be able to work these out when you're asked to estimate. It says an estimate is higher than the exact answer is called an overestimate, and if it's lower, it's called an underestimate. So on this first one, I'm going to decide whether our answer is an overestimate or it's an underestimate, and I'm going to explain why. So if we have a look at this, it says by rounding each number to one significant figure, estimate 43 plus 31.7. So what we do is we take 43 plus 31.7 and we go to the first non-zero number, which is 4, and we look to round and we look at the number after. So if we're rounding 43 to one significant figure, that is the same as rounding to the nearest 10, because that's where our first significant figure is in. So that 43 becomes 40, and 31.7, because it is a 1, so our 3 stays the same, becomes 30. We then perform our calculation and we get 70. Now, I said I was going to decide whether or not this was an underestimate or an overestimate. If we look at both of these numbers, have we rounded up or down in terms of this? I've rounded down here, I've rounded down here. That means this figure of 70 will be smaller than the actual answer. Earlier I said, be aware you can probably do some of these calculations on your own without estimating, but that's not the point of what we're trying to do here. If you're to work out that, you'd find that the answer was bigger than this. So therefore, because both of these have been rounded down, we say that this is an underestimate. And this is important to be able to identify, as it comes up several times as you go through your time at school. You'll be asked to evaluate questions and comment on questions like that. If we have a look at this question here, it says by rounding each number to one significant figure, estimate. I want to point something out here. It keeps saying by rounding each number to one significant figure, estimate. You're not always given this information. If it says estimate, you must always round to one significant figure. The question's telling you to do this in this instant, but it might not always do that. But anyway, what we do is we've got 78.43 times 6.24 all over 19.76. We round each of these to one significant figure, and notice I'm going to the first non-zero number, I'm putting a line after it, and I'm looking at the number after that to decide whether I have to round up or down. We use our estimation signs. Notice that's a squiggly equal signs. That means that you've estimated. So 78.43, there's an 8 here, so it rounds up to 80. 6.24, that's a 2, it's less than 5, so the 6 stays the same. And then 19.76, that is a 9, so we round the 1 up, and that becomes 20. You then work out the top line, so the top line is 80 times 6, which gives us 480 all over 20, and then we do 480 divided by 20. Now, if there's a 0 on the top and the bottom, we can cancel that out. So that's the same as saying 48 divided by 2, which equals 24. And that's how we would estimate this calculation. So you round each of your numbers to one significant figure, you work out the top line, the bottom line, and then you do the division because the fraction sign is a divide sign. I've got another example of this here. So we've got, and if we have a look at this, we've got 9.8 times by 43 all over 0.987 times by 19.7. So we're going to look at the 8 for this number. We're going to have a look at the 3 for this one. Now this one's more complicated. Our line goes after the 9 because we round after the first non-zero number. And then we have a look at the 9 for this one. So we go 9.8, we round that up, which gives us 10. We round 43 up. We round 43 down, my apologies, to give us 40 because there's a 3 there. We have a look at this. Now this one's important. We've got an 8 here, so we're going to round our 9 up, so that becomes 1. And then we times by, and 19.7 becomes 20. So we have 400 all over 20. We can cancel out the zeros on the end. 40 divided by 2 is 20. So I'll go through this. We rounded this to the nearest unit. We rounded this to the nearest 10, this to 1 decimal place, and this to the nearest 10. And that is because the first number was in those columns, the first non-zero numbers. Once we've rounded them, we work out the top line, the bottom line, then we do a divide. The final part of your knowledge organiser looks at estimating square roots and saying which two consecutive whole numbers it lies between. For this, it's dead straightforward. Look at your square numbers. So you've got 1, 4, you've got 9, you've got 16, you've got 25, you've got 36, you've got 49, then you have 64. Now, 81 and 100. 60, the square root of 60 will lie between these two numbers here. Now, you're asked to do in this is you're asked to identify it and to write it. It doesn't say this, but you need to write it as an inequality. So if you imagine the square root of 49, the square root of 60, and the square root of 64, using your inequality signs, and this is saying that the square root of 60 is bigger than this, and the square root of 60 is less than this, you write it like that. You can square root both of these numbers. So you say now, if you're confused about how to write the inequality signs, you can write it as saying that the square root of 60 is between 7 and 8. I do not mind which way you write your answer. So if you're confused by the square root signs, identify that the square root of 49 is 7, the square root of 64 is 8, and write it as a sentence like that. Okay? I'd like you to use this knowledge organiser to complete the questions from page 2 of your knowledge organiser, and then any maths watch work set. Thank you.